listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple and wherever you get your podcasts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today, I have a special guest on my show. His name is JD, and he is the founder of Dark Days Bright Nights website, and it's actually darkdaysbrightnights.org. And he also hosts a podcast called Dark Days Bright Nights, as well as Fragile Moments. And he has come on the show. We're going to discuss mental health and, advocate for it and seeing how we can change, mental health for the better. So, JD, thank you for coming on. You're more than welcome on my show here.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm glad to be here. I always like talking and chatting with like-minded people and helping to, like you said, push the narrative for the better.
Absolutely.
Something that probably I've enjoyed doing all my life. I really paid attention to it.
Excellent.
I've been a middle school teacher for about 10 years in a previous life.
Okay.
Not something that I signed up to do, but my mother has been a teacher all her life.
Wow.
And I can remember being, 5, 6, 7 years old and just thinking to myself, like, this is not a great profession. Like, she's up all night and doesn't seem to ever stop. And it just kind of fell into my lap somewhere, I guess 25, 26, and just tried it out and it stuck. But the part that always I go back to, and my wife and I both were middle school teachers, Montessori middle school teachers at that. And I think the part that sticks with me even today is the fact that the conversations that I had with students that were just not scripted. I wasn't necessarily having a American history lesson or talking algebra. It was the kid who came up and sat next to my desk, and I'm looking at him like, what you need, Ethan? And I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to see how you were doing. Oh, great. And it just kind of catches you off guard that here's somebody that's, 12, 13 years old and I just want to talk. So it's something that stuck with me, and here I am kind of in the same realm, just realizing that we all need to talk. And so I came across this idea of Dark Days, Bright Nights probably years ago before I even turned it into anything. But I didn't really understand what it meant to be an advocate for mental health. I just knew what the importance of health was, and that's everything and anything. I can't say I'm the best eater or that I work out every day, especially now having 2 kids under the age of 2 in the house, but it's always been some version of importance to my family as a whole. So that's where I started with this journey, was the physical aspect of health. So I have a certification as a personal trainer, as well as what I do with my day-to-day work now as a mental health coach. But when I began, and I, felt myself embedding the mindset piece of it. And slowly but surely, I was getting more and more frustrated with people who'd sign up and they'd be like, well, I see that you want me to do 10 push-ups. I don't really like doing push-ups. Do you have something else? Well, I really like this menu sounds really great, and I do want to eat better, but I don't really like eating kale and tomatoes. Like, do you have something else? And it was just so much more work to do that part of it. And that's just not it wasn't interesting enough to me to pursue that conversation, let alone the fact that you weren't paying me enough to constantly have to rethink. But what I started to see, though, was that it all circled back to the same thing. It wasn't that they were complaining that they didn't like push-ups or complaining that they didn't like eat that. There was a mindset problem there. There was an issue, a hurdle that was stopping them from really understanding this is the best choice for you. Not to say that I want you to eat something that you hate. There's other options, sure, but
Yeah.
if you're doing something just because somebody told you to do it, then odds are it's not going to stick. And so I stopped and I was like, there's something better I could be doing with all of this, something to still incorporate the fact that, yeah, you probably need to eat a little bit healthier than you are. But let's go back a second and really think about why that's stopping, like why you keep signing up for, 30-day challenge after 30-day challenge. And this week you're keto and next week you're not eating anything orange. There's a reason there. So I slowly began my conversations, to kind of shift to be essentially more mental health related. And I just said, okay, then stop trying to make this version of the business work and say the end of that chapter and start here. So there's where Dark Days, Bright Nights comes from, is the idea that, yeah, we all need to be healthy, but there's a better education when it comes to understanding mental illness and mental health that's stopping us from not only just healing from trauma, but just, healing altogether when it comes to the way we live.
Right.
So, yeah. So I speak and I talk quite more than most people probably want me to. I probably, and if they were honest, but I think it's something that I truly know is bringing value at this point. I can put my head on the pillow at night and go, "Yep, somebody heard it," and that felt a lot better than telling them to go to the gym and spend an hour and just do legs today.
I absolutely get that, and it makes a lot of sense because I think that's true with anything. If you have to be told to do something like exercising, weight loss, change your diet, unless you see it for yourself, like if you're the one that wakes up and goes, oh my, something's not right. My doctor said that I'm at risk for whatever. Yeah. If I don't change this, I could either have serious issues in the future or worse. I better do something about this. Yeah. You have a much better chance of succeeding with that challenge that you have than someone telling you've got to do this because this is what's going on, because that's not necessarily going to convince you unless you see it yourself. Like there are those out there that you could, but that's not a very common.
It's very few and far between. It really is. And I can tell you, I would count myself as being a pretty strong-minded individual, but even myself and wife included, and she's a oncology nurse, and so there's a huge aspect of health there. And you realize even with yourself, you have these entirely unmotivated days, or these days where it's like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Here's somebody that kind of has their act together. I can't say that I'm perfect, and I hope I'm never am, but if that's how I feel, imagine somebody that doesn't have the tools necessary to find that strength mentally to go, okay, nope, this isn't working. What do I need to do? And so, those are valid conversations to have. And I think, that's what I began seeing, that, they're virtually the same thing when you're asking somebody to think, healthier as far as their physical aspect, eating, exercising, all that. It's the same thing with our mental stamina. We just don't talk about them the same way. One is way more taboo. The other one is like, oh yeah, this is awesome. I'm going to tell all my friends I'm now, not eating carbs and running, half marathons every other day. One's cool.
Absolutely.
The other one's not. And that's what conversations kind of bring, is that it doesn't have to be this like, oh, I think he just used the word bipolar. That's kind of scary. It can be,
Right.
okay, I heard him say that. Like, what else comes along with that? Oh, I understand that simply now. Great.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah, for
there
sure.
with
Yeah.
everybody in some way, shape, or form. If we're being honest with ourselves. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where
Totally.
I had with everything, and
Right.
getting people to not only realize the world around them and who they're interacting with, and what might be something that person that they love or associate with is struggling with, but also within themselves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Now, I was just thinking of this actually was while you were talking. I want to ask on your opinion on this.
Mhm.
I've recently, like when I say recent, I'm talking the last few months or so, have come to more of a conclusion or I have a bit of a theory where there's a lot of issues and things that occur, and this is with any people, like anybody, not necessarily teenagers or children, but also like young adults, middle-aged adults, and then older adults that
Mhm.
are, have experienced a great deal of life, that there are a lot of the things that we go through are tied, not necessarily directly at times, but are tied into our mental health.
Yeah,
A lot of choices that we make, a lot of things that occur in our life, like important changes, things that determine our path, little changes like maybe having like deciding to maybe change our outfit or
hmm,
kind of reinvent ourselves a little bit because we're feeling kind of bored with things, or we always some people change jobs every couple of years.
yeah,
That this is all kind of tied into mental health
sure,
in some way, because they don't necessarily realize it. Like I know for example, for myself, there have been things in my past that I've done or haven't done that were due to my own experiences in my life
sure,
in mental health, and at the time that never occurred. Like I never said, like the second after I did something, going, gee, I did that because of my current mental status or my mental
sure.
health status. But if a lot of people don't necessarily see this, but I'm sure that like if they are seeing a therapist, or maybe they are reflecting on things that they've done, that they realize that, gee, this that I made this choice for my career,
Yeah,
and then this occurred, and they're looking down their pathways and the pins on the wall that are indicating changes, and they all of a sudden go, huh,
yeah,
I see that because of the how I was raised, or something that happened to me or that I witnessed as a child or as a teenager directly reflected this, and
they're tied
all
together. Yeah,
these. Yeah, it's so amazing that we don't really think of this. A lot of people don't think of this in the moment because that's not,
mm-mm.
not most people aren't going to go, wow, I just experienced a moment that's going to affect me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like,
And I mean, I think we also, think that the moments that have to be tied to, our future and how we're going to behave and think and act and live have to be
yeah,
these like huge events. But the definition of trauma is not linear. There's not just
no,
one event that's traumatic.
correct.
It depends on how your life was. If you were somebody who was sheltered all their life, and all of a sudden, and never moved from your childhood home, you were comfortably at a great family, didn't see all these like other parts of the world, maybe you didn't travel, add that factor to it. And then, one day you go off to college and you chose that school because you wanted that education from there. And now
Yeah,
you're by yourself, and you're interacting with the world and people that maybe you didn't. That could be traumatic. You could also have a traumatic event where something serious. You were in war situation. You were,
Yeah,
assaulted or
exactly.
raped. There's a huge range of what's traumatic to people. And you're right. You don't have to realize it in the moment, and you
No,
shouldn't. You're not going to,
no.
unless it was this huge event that you're like, oh crap, I just got knocked on my butt. But you may
Yeah,
understand one part of how that affects you because it was so surface level. It may take years for you to realize what was really the hard part about that particular
yeah,
moment in your life. And I think that's great. I think that's okay to not understand it, but we should
right.
always strive to pursue that understanding. And that doesn't mean that,
Absolutely.
you spend every waking moment and stressing about trying to find the meaning. You may never know, and that's
Yeah,
okay too.
absolutely. Yeah.
But you may not know for years, and it may just kind of dawn on you while you're taking a walk with your dog that, and I'm using that example, and I wasn't even I'm not referencing the cover to your podcast at all. It was just kind of a simple example,
Yeah,
but you're just kind of aimlessly walking and go, oh, you know what? That was really kind of a tough moment. That
that's
explains why
quite
5
funny,
years later,
Yeah.
I can tell you, it happens time and time again with me, whether it's laying down to sleep at night and I'm reading a book and then I'm like realizing I'm not reading the pages because I was thinking about something else, or just, driving in the car by myself, which is not very often, but you just kind of all of a sudden it hits you. No reason,
Right.
no song came on, no, words or conversation extra, just kind of there. And
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
great thing. And I think that's what people have to be okay with, is like you said,
Right.
knowing that the threads of life all are connected in some way, shape, or form.
Yes, for sure.
Some are thicker than others, and very apparent that they're
Yeah.
connected, and others. To me, though, I enjoy that. And I
Yeah.
know, but I know, and I'm not everybody, and that's a good thing. But that understanding is something that I hope to give to other people in my conversations and the work I do. That, hey,
Hmm.
like, I can process the events of my life and still
Yeah.
enjoy my life and not be tied to that past.
Yeah. Which is great because that's good progress.
It is.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who aren't at that stage yet,
No.
which is really sad because that's where they need to get at some point to that point where
Yeah.
they can look back, but also it won't necessarily or like have a flashback, I guess, if you want to
Yeah.
put it into that aspect. They need to get there,
Yeah.
and they some know and some don't know that it takes a lot of work. It's not a
It does.
simple process, but it's well worth it once you get in and you see that you start to see results.
Yeah. You,
Yeah,
that's a good phrase to use. That it is work, and I think, just as a whole in society, we're kind of conditioned to think that, like, that everything should come easy. There should be a pill or a magic word, or
yeah.
like I said, like a 30-day challenge, and you'll be fit as a fiddle. And there's
I
not.
wish.
There's
Yeah,
not.
I know that doesn't work that way. Yeah,
No, and that's just being realistic. That's not being, dark and gloomy and pessimistic. That's just how things are. The most of things. Yeah, there's
yeah.
maybe a few things that you can quickly, fix and move on. But they're few and far between. And then, like I said,
Yeah.
it may take 5 days, it may take 5 years.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I
It's
think
up
it's
to the
just something
person.
where, yeah, it's just something we're conditioned to think. It's just like age. There's this, like, hidden agenda or hidden conversation where it's like you have to be married and have kids and own a house and all these things, like, ticked off by a certain age. And so
Yeah.
some people realize long before that, nah, I don't have to. Um, and some people were stuck, and it was like, oh crap, I'm turning 40 tomorrow. I didn't do any of those things. Well, guess I'm never going to get anywhere. And that's not true either. It's the same thing. You
Yeah.
may not be healed tomorrow.
Yeah.
You won't be, but it may be years from
No.
now before you do, but you will.
Yeah. and that has to, you have to use that in a way as a motivational factor
Sure.
to push yourself. Well, I don't mean push as in like force it, but I mean,
No, absolutely.
yeah, to have that. It's like having that poster on the wall where you kind of look at it and go, like, if let's say it's somebody has a sports hero or a musical hero, and they want to become a professional, and they kind of use that as a motivation. They want to have that person's life, or
Yeah,
that, and so they use it as a motivational factor. So you could, in theory, you could put a poster of yourself,
you could.
saying, this is me in 10 years or 5
Yeah,
years, and this is how I want to be. And then you could put pictures or something, or whatever. You could do something like
good.
that, and then use it as a motivational, you know way to keep yourself going, because I know it's gonna, yeah, you're gonna have days and maybe even weeks or months where you're gonna feel like, you're questioning things, and
Everything.
you're,
Yeah.
yeah, because you go, oh my god, I've been putting so much work into this, and I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. And so you kind of go, am I doing am I doing this right?
Yeah.
Is there a point to this? You're going to start to feel having self-doubt.
Yeah. And that's
But
natural.
yeah, exactly.
We forget
Yeah,
that, people think that like, oh, well, I got to start over. That's it. And
yeah,
sometimes, sure, you do need to start over. This wasn't the correct path,
yeah,
find another one. But a lot of times it just means you need to rethink. Um,
yeah,
and to me, that's beautiful, to be able to do that. I think
yeah,
the catchphrase is pivot, but
yes,
it's that you do that in life, often. I'm not sure making a habit of it is a good idea, but you're gonna do that.
yeah, for sure.
I don't think that everything. I think you mentioned, people change their job every couple of years. I think that stage in our society can kind of slow down, that we can kind of go back maybe to people that were at a job for 10, 15 years. But that's it's just like
Okay.
changing your major in college. It's you're trying to figure,
Yeah,
there's a point in your life where you really have no clue what you're doing. At some point in your life, you need to start having a better understanding of what you're doing. But I mean, if you would ask me 20 years ago, would I be interested in starting my own business, and doing that part of the business? I mean, podcasting was probably nothing, but we'll talk, radio. No, not
yeah.
interesting at all. It wouldn't. I would have been like,
Hmm.
no, you're talking to a different person. Try a different fortune, because that's not mine. So
Yeah,
here we are, and I mean,
yeah.
same thing when I started teaching. My mother told me, it's a good phrase there. My mother told me that give it a year, and in a year you'll know whether you want to do something or not. She didn't say teaching. She
Right.
said something. I said, okay. So within a year, I mean, it probably didn't even take that. Like, I felt it and I knew it, and that's where I stuck. And I waited probably another 4 after that before I got one of the 2 master's degrees I have in education. So I knew this is what I
Wow.
wanted to do, and then all of a sudden, it just wasn't. For various reasons, most of them being, bureaucratic and political, that I just wasn't interested in. Here I am, one myself. I wasn't interested in the parents. It was just
Yeah,
not
for sure.
fun anymore. And so I, for lack of a better term, I pivoted. I rethought and said, you know what? I'm going to lose the enjoyment of something I really, really do feel in my heart is something I want to do. Um,
Yeah,
so I
that's
walked
good.
away and did something entirely different. But if I really think about what I'm doing now, I'm
Yeah.
still a teacher. I'm still a teacher.
Uh, yeah.
But that even that, I mean, I've been doing something on my own for about 6.5 years now, and it probably only within the
Wow.
past like year and a half that I actually understand myself and realize myself that, hey, you aren't a former teacher. You're a former middle school teacher, but you're
Yeah.
a teacher still. So
Hmm.
there, it's the same
Interesting. Yeah.
thing. You
Yeah.
have to. You never know what the universe will throw at you, but
Yeah.
you have to be ready to listen to it.
Absolutely. Now, there was something that we briefly touched on near the start more so,
Mm,
and I had a couple comments about it in a way. It's amazing how you know how you see there are movies and TV shows where they always show a student or a person who it looks like they have a great life,
mm,
and it could be like the beautiful girl in school or the athlete, right, the
mm.
football star, and people, his classmates and his friends think he's got an amazing life and he looks like he's got it all, and then they show behind the scenes, they go to his
Yep.
house and he's got a overbearing father, or the
Sure.
daughter has a mother who's like trying to push her to be this, or like it's they you soon realize that that person actually doesn't have as great of a life as
Yeah.
everybody sees, because they're using their current status as like a
Hmm.
mask, right? And especially back then, like in where a lot of these kind of movies came up, like in the 90s, 80s, 90s,
Hmm.
even in the 2000s, when mental health wasn't exactly a big discussion
Yeah.
compared to today, right? A lot of these kids had issues and often had a lot of struggles, and so when they graduated or they went in, like the football star goes to school to gets a scholarship or whatever and goes to college, and he finds his relief is maybe using drugs or
Yeah.
alcohol, or right, or the girl, the beautiful girl, is finds herself obsessing about her weight, or her,
Hmm.
like trying to stay beautiful as she gets older. There's all these things that play in that most people don't see. And at the same time, because I was thinking, like, there's all these ideals that people, like society, kind of pushes on us,
Absolutely.
whether it's a family ideal, an individual ideal, marriage ideals, like all sorts of. There's so many different angles out, like
Hmm.
things that are out there, and to us, like some of us who maybe don't have a lot of money, and we're struggling, and we can't exactly go out and just go and buy a fancy toy to go on vacation with whenever we want to, and some of us have to have an old car in order to get by and have to fix it, or like
Yeah.
we see these people who have money, or we see these people who have success, and when we look at them, we don't necessarily go, I wonder if that person is actually okay,
Yeah.
right?
No.
Like they're using possessions, or material things to cover up for maybe something that's going wrong, or they're not doing well mentally, but
Yeah.
they don't reach out, right? Or nobody sees it. So there's and this, I believe that this happens a lot more than we're aware of. And it's like there's no perfect remedy, there's no perfect situation out there.
Sure.
And yeah, and uh, in related to this, I actually, a couple days ago, I put out a poll on Twitter, and I asked people, I said, in the world, and I kind of in brackets said, maybe specifically North America, how many people in the population do you think have some sort of a mental illness or mental issues, right, or mental health problems? And amazingly enough, the majority of people who voted chose 25 to 50%. And I had under 25%, I had the 25 to 50, 50 to 75, and then I had 75 and up. And I was, because I don't honestly know the answer. I was just kind of I wanted to see what people
What they
felt
felt.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, most people figured that 25 to 50% is who typically would have a like mental health issues, or have a mental illness, or deal with, you know, stress and anxiety and trauma, all the different ranges, like of anything that you can think of.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of low. I was thinking the
I was going to say the
numbers.
same thing.
Yeah, I was thinking I think it's a lot higher. I think most people don't talk about it or don't really
Yep.
bring it up. Maybe
Absolutely.
they might say it to themselves,
Yeah.
and maybe they stress about it and keep it quiet, but most people aren't going to come out on Twitter or Facebook or to their
No.
friends and say, I'm having some issues here. I'm not doing well. I'm constantly stressed out, or I'm always anxious, or, like, and that's, I, I get it. I understand why that is, especially in North America with the way society has, like, the impression that we're, that there is through society and through
Mhm.
movies and TV and the media, right? Like, majority of people out there aren't going to talk about
No.
something that's bugging them. They're not willing to be vulnerable and let people know.
Yeah. I mean, I would, I'm going to be the one that's like, oh no, you didn't say that. But I would, I would venture a guess that we all have some version of
Yeah.
a mental illness, whether you want to call that, something that's completely diagnosable or not is a
Right.
whole nother conversation. There's a giant gray area because there's not one concrete definition, even within the medical field, of what, being mentally
Yeah.
ill is. But we all do. And I don't know necessarily if that, for some, sure. I think it's a lot of, I don't want to say that. And that comes
Yeah.
with your generation.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you, with my mom and my dad too, but here's a mother who's, been around kids her whole life teaching, various ages, and now, been a director of a school for the past 15-20 years. You would think that she has a little bit of understanding, but man, you tell her that you're worried about something, or you even show signs that you're being worried about some situation,
Yeah.
she'll kind of, even through text, you can feel it that she's okay, and we'll have a conversation and make you feel empowered and good. But then give her like 24 hours and, JD, you're okay. I just want to make sure that, I was worried last night that, you said this, and I didn't want you to feel anxious or feel, upset or blah blah blah. Like, you're gonna be okay. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, like that changed. But that's because, I mean, that's where that generation is. And that's like, I mean, I hate saying that, but it is true for a lot of things. That doesn't mean that they don't understand, you wash it away. That's even more reason to help people understand.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, you don't have to necessarily admit that, yeah, I'm like full blown depression, I need to see a therapist. You might
Yeah.
have something minor. You might have, just a mild depression, and, because you have these moments and it's harder for you to come out of it. And you just need better tools, and somebody maybe need to help find those tools for you, or
Yeah.
support you in gathering those tools.
Right.
You have to admit that to yourself. You don't have to blurt it out to the world. No.
No.
I'm a firm believer that there's things that people want to know, and there's
Yeah.
things that people need to know. And the things that people need to know is a very small amount of your life.
Absolutely. I agree.
But you have to be authentic and real to you. Um,
Yeah.
because if you're not, that won't come through. And then people start wondering, oh, well, like you were explaining, like, the kids that, oh, well, he was, the jock in high school, and now he's, hanging out with this crowd, and all of a sudden he likes rap music, and he really didn't even like that in high school. Like, there must be something wrong. No, it might be, but probably the fact that he didn't get exposed to all that at some point in
Yeah.
his life, or never had a chance to explore that, and now that's what they're doing. I mean, I saw it time and time again with kids that entered my class, and I,
Hmm.
and even, for myself, I would dare say I had a pretty darn good life, but there are definitely things that I just didn't experience, not because my parents didn't want me to, I just didn't.
Right.
So, as you get older, you start doing, things that to explore it.
Yeah.
Some conversations, especially when you're talking about, like, middle school and high school, some conversations that kid is being an adolescent and they're exploring. There's other people, the same conversation is got a new version, a new definition, and that person is acting out and they're rebelling. And
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
necessarily that. You
No,
can
I agree.
you can do those things and not be a terrible person.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's, I mean, I'll go back to, the middle school realm of it. I mean, I time and time again, kids would enter my classroom and they would always come in as sixth graders and kind of just, hang out for a day with, the class, and just kind of, because this is where they were going to move up into, but I'd always get like every
Right.
year, I'd always get one student that, either other parents from my classroom, because I knew the kid, from being friend groups, or other teachers, or just through the, the administration, that, oh, like, you're going to have fun with Charlie. He does this, and this in class. And I'm like, okay, bring on Charlie. Like, I'm guaranteeing you that Charlie isn't as bad as you think. Charlie probably just needs to be understood.
Yeah.
So not to say that
Yeah.
like the kid doesn't have things that we need to work differently with, but he's not rebelling. He's not an evil kid. And so the same conversation goes to adults. Like, okay, why are they doing that? We don't ask that question. Oh,
Right.
it must be just, narcissistic and flamboyant. He needs to buy another Rolls Royce. He's a celebrity, he can afford that. Well, maybe,
Yeah.
but also maybe he's trying to act out something that he wasn't able to do as a child. And that's not necessarily like he had this traumatic childhood, but you may not have had that opportunity. And now
Absolutely.
you do.
Yeah.
I have a laundry list of things that when I have enough money, I'm gonna do them. That doesn't mean that I'm going off the deep end or having a midlife crisis. There's just things I can't do right now in life.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
it all comes down to, like I said, like I like to tell people, to tell your story, and you get to choose what part of that story you get to tell everybody.
Yeah.
But it also shouldn't be a complete, made up story, or added to, or lying to yourself with it.
Right. Yeah.
Can
totally.
you tell somebody that, you were addicted to drugs in high school and had a tough time, with the bad crowd, and leave it at that? Absolutely. You don't have to also tell them that you were addicted to drugs and overdosed and were arrested 4 times. You don't have to tell people that. You at least were honest with the fact that, yes, I had a drug problem when I was younger.
Yeah.
You got it. And I think we've kind of just we force people to tell everything because they want to know everything, and you don't. You just have to be honest with yourself. I can't fix this, or this is an issue. What do
Absolutely.
I need to do with it?
Being honest is very important.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big step in getting into the right direction, or moving
Absolutely.
in the right direction. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I have a really good question here.
Shoot.
I wish I had thought of this months ago. I'm thinking that a lot of, like, I'm not saying this is the reason, of course, but I'm thinking it will add to it, or it has a good, I don't know, 50% of it maybe, or something like that. But a lot of, how there's this understanding that, like I was saying earlier, a lot of people are not really willing to if they're dealing with mental illness, or they're struggling and they're not doing well. There's so many people out there that are not really willing to say something to their best friend or to their wife or husband. Now, I was thinking a lot of this, in my opinion, is due to the negative fear, or the negative aspect of what will happen if they say something. And at the same time, if you turn it around in a different way, if, let's say, 300 years ago, mental illness was brought out and people learned about it and understood it, so today, if the idea that everybody knows about it, the world's well educated, There's, there's no real mystery that sure, they don't know the mind as well as they'd like to, of course, because technology can only go so far, but still.
Sure.
So if everybody knew about it and it was well informed, well educated, that perhaps more people, instead of feeling scared to say something, would be going, "Oh, I have no issues talking about it." Like,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be afraid to bring it out. It would be something just like saying, I like cheese, right? Or I like wine, or I prefer Pepsi over cola. It could be it'd be the same sort of situation
Yeah.
where that person realizes that they're struggling, and it's not a complicated or a difficult thing to bring out. They'd be able to, because they know that everybody would be supportive and would be able to help them in some way, some manner. Like, society has, in my opinion, for the most part, has really been the deciding factor, or a lot of the reasons to why people don't, or are afraid to speak about it.
Yeah.
And it's not because they can't, or they're too, like they feel inside that they just can't speak. It's, it's like this, they're afraid to say something. Like, the husband is afraid to tell his wife that he's dealing with mental illness, and he's scared, and he's feeling super anxious daily because of this or that. It's all that, it's that stigma, or that they automatically think that that person or society is going to look down on them, and is going to shame them, or is going to treat them differently, or like, "Oh, poor you," and it
Yeah.
influences them.
I think even like a step down from even that is that, for a lot of people, they fear that whoever their inner circle is, we'll just call it that, not
Yeah.
necessarily even like a relationship, not that they, are going to look at them necessarily different. I think most human beings, is at least what I like to believe, have a compassionate side, and do want to be there to do something for their friends, their family, their loved ones. But I
Right.
think what it comes down to is that, the fear is that they're not going to understand what that is.
Right.
We highlight a lot of we're not even highlight, we romanticize a lot of the mental illnesses. The ones you talk about a lot here, the ADHDs and CPTSD and anxieties and depressions, things like that. They're the ones that you hear about enough that it's like, well, yeah, she's just depressed. We
Right.
forget that depression and anxiety, and you start putting the cocktail together, you do end up in a tougher situation. You all of a sudden have somebody that has some suicidal thoughts, and
Mm-hmm.
you just looked at it that, oh well, they're just having a bad day, and that's where your understanding stopped. So you
Right.
just took them to go get a spa treatment, and made sure that you hung out and had a few drinks with them. That's a good start, but
Yeah.
did you really take time to understand where they're coming from? And I'm never going to claim I'm just a human being, not an expert by any means, but
Right.
I think that's kind of with a lot of things. We just either refuse to understand it because that's not how we were raised, or
Yeah.
wherever we sought that understanding out, they had one kind of narrow definition of that understanding, and that doesn't help either. It's not to say
No.
that there's not one answer for certain things, but there's
Yeah.
certainly value in other perspectives. Like I said, with my parents, I mean, they're the most supportive people I think on the planet. I'm pretty sure when my mom dies, she will shake hands with Mother Teresa, but
Yeah.
she like, I mean, I know that there are certain things that I would talk to her, and I have to think about explaining it a little bit more, not because of like the fact that she's older and doesn't get what's going on in this generation. She does, but it
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't how she was brought up. And you can
Absolutely. Yeah.
fight as hard as you want to not be your parents, if they were somebody that's just not a good human being, there's still going to be part of you that rubs off,
Yeah.
just on a
Yeah.
simple fact. I mean, my wife, for example, she doesn't she doesn't like having confrontations. So,
Yeah.
if something's a harder conversation, of course she's going to listen. I have no doubt that I can talk about it, but you can hear sometimes that it's like a quick, kind of, okay. And it takes like a little while for it to process and go, oh, there's more that I need to understand with that. But that's unique.
Mm-hmm. For
People
sure.
kind of just stop and go, oh, well, phooey. Again, he just used that word bipolar. That's Kanye's a scary dude. I don't want to use that word either. So okay. I
Yeah.
hope you find
Well,
help. Bye-bye.
yeah.
And do you want to go
Yeah.
hang out and have a drink? I'm going to forget you said that, and that's something to recognize too, that not that you shouldn't say something to her, your friend Susan ever again, but you should also be aware that, hey, Susan has a challenge with this too. How can I help while I'm asking her to listen? You know,
Yeah, for sure.
and that's just something that to me is where I kind of like will put my soapbox down everywhere. That's where I know that I can at least do something, as far as helping people understand, to get to the point that they really can be supportive, whatever that means. Sometimes, myself included, that means that you look at it and go, well, that is beyond my scope of practice, but
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you, listening, that I'm going to help you find a therapist, or that sounds serious. My friend Steve is definitely somebody that has experienced something similar. He'd be great
Right.
to talk. Even if it's something like that, that's a huge step in a better direction of helping people understand.
Oh, for sure.
As you were sitting there, like talking about it, like you're going back like 300 years, the first thing that pops into my head is just take a look at the issue of racism and slavery.
Yeah.
We're still talking about it, and we're still
Yeah.
talking about it in the terms of like it's the same height of the issue it was back in Civil War days. And
Right.
I have no experience. I'm an idiot when it comes to that, for sure. But I am
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
fully aware of the fact that if I knew somebody, or if you talk to somebody that is experiencing racism, I guarantee you they will tell you that it's probably the same feeling that their ancestors have. And so I
No
don't
kidding.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'd be in a better spot than we are now. I feel like you'd probably be like we are with issues like that, topics like that. You'd have a lot more people being vocal and interested in
Yeah.
furthering the conversation.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I just don't know if, and that's again being realistic, not pessimistic. I
Yeah,
think
for
we'd just
sure.
be more comfortable. I'm like that with a lot of things. I certainly, there are politicians and news articles and things that I just shake my head and go, man, that was stupid to say that. But then at the same time,
Yeah.
I'm the first person to step back and go, well, why did they say that? What,
Right.
where are they coming from? I'm not necessarily saying that I'm agreeing with what you're saying, but what got us to that point? And then it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
because if we do that, then at least you're listening to the other person, and then you're
Right.
helping understand that, okay, maybe I shouldn't have an argument with this person. Maybe I should just let him go. Or maybe I shouldn't have an argument. Maybe they just need to understand this a little bit better.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean,
I think that's good. Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's smart. Like I I guess I wish there were more people who would be able to, at least, if they don't necessarily understand it,
mhm,
at least would be more open-minded
sure,
about it. Like I get it. There's so much that's
it
still,
is.
like, it's a mystery for a lot of these, because even myself, there are times where I often am sitting here thinking, why did this occur? What exactly was the reasoning? Or like, or I get asked, why did you do that? Or what was happening? And I kind
I don't
of
know.
just go within
Yeah,
that second, go, oh, it's because this happened, and then I
yeah,
felt this and this. It doesn't, I don't have a diagram with the answer on it saying, here we go, this is
yeah.
my,
This is
it's a,
why.
Yeah, it's more thinking and having to reflect and
Sure.
try to think back and see, is there something more to it? Is there a root of this? Like,
Yeah.
it's not an easy thing to answer, even for someone who does have it deals with a mental illness.
Yeah.
And it's, if it was that simple,
Yeah.
more people would be going to their
Sure.
therapist or finding a therapist saying, I have it, help me.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole point of a therapy, or having therapy, is someone who has a better understanding of it, can help,
Yeah.
can show you a direction.
Yeah.
They
The
can't
tools to
do it
use.
for
Yeah.
you, but yeah, they can show you the direction, and the tools, and the little, like, the hints and
Yeah.
advice that they'll give you, saying, here, do this when you're feeling overwhelmed. Breathe in
Yeah.
deep and slow. Like, they're going to give you stuff to work with.
To work with, and that's the key. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the key phrase right there. Things to work with.
yeah,
I can't tell you how how frustrating I get, or how frustrated I get when you hear somebody like, here's 7 tips to cure your anxiety. This is not going to
yeah.
go away. I hate to tell you that. It's not, but
No,
that's not a bad thing. You just have no idea what's going to happen in your life.
yeah,
There's no way to predict everything, but you
no,
can at least settle in the fact that you have this set of tools now in your arsenal,
yeah,
so that when a situation arises that makes you anxious or causes you to be depressed, you can try these things. But
yeah,
also know that that situation that you now find yourself in might be worse than the previous one that caused all this to happen in the first place. So you
yeah,
might need to rethink all that. And we don't tell people that enough. We just, again, we want that quick fix, and that's just everything
yeah,
in society. But the more we can tell people that there may not be an actual cure for it,
yeah,
and that's okay. Some things certainly there are, but
yeah, absolutely.
there's a lot of things that there's not. It just means that we have no idea what's going to happen in the rest of your life, and that's amazing.
I agree.
I mean,
I
but
agree.
that's, I mean, I'm 41 and I'm just getting to say those things out loud to
Yeah,
myself, and so
yeah,
you
for
can't
sure.
expect somebody that's going through something in their 20s, even 30s, to understand that, but you can
Yeah,
begin to have that conversation that, hey, eventually you can get to a place that, life is still going to suck at times. I'm sorry, kid, but
yeah,
the way I look at things is the worst moments in my life. I look at them now and
right.
compare that to what's happening. If they don't if what's happening in my current day doesn't compare to that worst moment that's happened to me, then
Yeah,
I'm out. I forget it. What the heck are you doing stressing about this? But that's something I've learned that may not work for you. You may not enjoy yoga. You may not enjoy meditation. You may absolutely friggin' hate journaling. That's, but
right.
you have to figure that out. You
Yeah,
can't have somebody go, here's the kale smoothie. Here's a pen and a pad. And here's this cool app that has all this crazy music and sounds. You're gonna be good, kid. Enjoy it. No,
yeah.
that
If
may
it were
work.
only that simple.
Right. I hate yoga. I know what it's for, and I hate
Yeah,
meditating, but I know why I hate those things, because somebody told me that I need to do it like this, and I need to
yeah,
spend an hour every day meditating, and I need to journal for 30 minutes and spill up my guts. No, you can meditate with your eyes shut for 2 minutes,
yeah,
or even 30 seconds at a red light, and you don't have to pick up a pen and paper at all. You can just you speak to yourself in the mirror. There's versions of everything, but we don't want to.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
not marketable.
yeah.
So
I know. Like, my favorite thing to do, if I'm feeling stressed or anxious or I feel triggered, I often, well, I will go outside and I will do some exercise, or I will do something that helps me take my mind off of it. But at the same time, I I don't just avoid the issue. I
sure,
use it as a method to help me, because I like to speak out loud to myself while I'm doing it,
yeah,
because it's kind of like having that inner voice with the outer voice. having a conversation with each other, and that's how I kind of do a lot of figuring things out. And it works for me, and I know that it doesn't necessarily work for everybody else, but I find that that's my best method of getting answers and learning about it and understanding it better, because it's like it'd be like putting yourself in a quiet room and shutting the door and turning the lights off, and all you do is talk to yourself,
You go nuts.
you know. Yeah, exactly. Same sort of thing. It's just
But it sounds great on
yeah.
the surface. It's like, oh, I'm quiet for a little bit. Great.
Yeah, I
Go
know.
nuts, though. Well,
Yeah,
most
but
people
it's fun, and at the same time I get exercise, so
But let me ask you this
no.
then. Would that have
Sure.
worked for you 5, 10, 15 years ago? If somebody had told you and you never knew that that was a tool to use to help you calm down, would
Mhm.
you have been like, yeah, no, well, no, I hate the outdoors or I hate moving? Like, would you have agreed that that would have been something that would have been value? Or did you just kind of realize that at this point in my life, this works now for me?
The exercise part I always liked. It
Yeah.
was it was the idea of using it to work out my own issues.
Sure.
That's the part that I learned recently that I really enjoyed,
Yeah.
because I always loved to go out, whether it was biking or walking or whatever. I loved doing it. It's just it became an opportunity
Yeah.
to
You
to
didn't
because
realize you didn't realize
yeah,
basically that it was an actual like tool that you could use to help manage something mentally. You just kind of
yeah,
associated it as something physically. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's what I get. I mean, I think that's where I was when it came to starting all this. As I
Right.
mentioned, it was like, okay, I get the exercise, the eating part of it, but we never. I think you talked about it, like we all these threads, like we don't think about the fact that this activity, this thing that I'm doing, that
Yeah.
counts. Like
Yeah.
that's a version of managing your world. Doesn't mean that you
Yes.
shut it off. It doesn't, your tool in your arsenal there is not, let me forget about it and not talk about it. That doesn't count. But you sitting by
Correct.
yourself and just
Yeah.
kind of breathing and thinking about everything, not just the positive, or the negative, but both, that
Yeah.
counts. That's a tool,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
Um,
It does. Cool. Yeah, that's perfect. Exactly. You got to find your way. You have to
you do.
find what works
And that's
for Beth.
that's that to me is a great thing. I mean, you from the physical realm to down, they're virtually the same conversation, but they're going to change,
Hmm.
and you never know when they're going to. You just have to be okay with that they are. It took us, so I have a 22-month-old and a 3-week old, but it took having my son and having things shortened as far as you know
Yeah.
um, being able to exercise or being to go out. And I told myself that it was okay that I can't go out and I can't run or I can't do this like I used to. But when I started going back to the gym,
Yeah.
I only have these 2 days that I'm not the primary caretaker of my son. And then
Right.
eventually here, when my wife goes back to work, it'll be both of them. We chose that, and that's an amazing opportunity that I'm not taking back. So I have a lot to do in those 2 days. So when I started going back to the gym,
Hmm.
I'm like, I can't. I used to go every day, my wife and I, for whether that was the end of the school day or the beginning of the day or whatever it was, for at least 45 minutes or an hour. Not some
Wow.
crazy lifter. Not I can't tell you I have ever had 6-pack abs or looked great in my opinion, but I
Hmm.
went. That's just what I thought you needed to do. But until I went back after having a kid, um, I was like, well, I can't be here forever. So let's
Right.
just trim this down. I'm there for like 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes. And I walk out every time and I'm like, I feel just as great. I may not even have this like crazy sweat. I may not be
Yeah.
completely sore, but I did something. I moved
Yeah.
and I'm out. And it's like, I can remember like the first day that I did it. I'm like, what in the world was I doing coming every day for an hour? It wasn't
Yeah.
serving me. And maybe somewhere along the way, it stopped doing it. I just didn't pay attention. It took not being able to do it to find that out. I can't wait. I just started running with my son in the stroller the other day, and I can't tell you how out of shape I am from that, going from somebody who's run multiple half marathons. But that will probably something that I totally enjoyed it because I'm completely in my own when I do that. But now here I am, that same idea that going to the gym was something that I enjoyed to get out of my head doesn't work anymore, but there's a version of it that does. There's just other things that, to prioritize in your life. And you have to be okay with telling yourself that that's okay.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I think that's a very smart way to go because you're deciding it. You're making your choice. It's not someone else.
Exactly. All
right. Perfect. Okay. Well, excellent. Well, there we go. All right. That's the end of this episode. JD, very grateful and very happy that you came on the show. This was really good.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Oh, yeah, not a problem. Yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed discussing what we discussed here. It was really informative, and I hope my audience gets a lot out of this too.
They're gonna be like, "Why is this guy talking so much? He needs to stop."
Yeah, well, they're used to it. It's nothing new.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. There you go. If you have any questions regarding what was discussed here, you can ask me. You can email me, or you can go on Twitter. The Twitter handle is ADHD and CPTSD, or like I said, you can email me, which is livingwithadhdandcptsd@gmail.com. If you have a question for JD, I can always relay it to him, and then I can get it to you, or you can listen. Either way. All right, everyone. There we go. Okay, JD, thanks. All right.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Okay, everybody. Till next time. Have fun. Bye.